Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dragon Talk, live from GaryCon 11. This is very exciting. I am very happy to be here. It has been fun gaming with all of the folks here in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. I am Greg Tito, and I'm joined by Shelly Mazanoble.
Woo!
How's it
Hi.
going? How are you?
Good.
We have Mr. Luke Gygax here
Yay!
as well.
All right, it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm really glad you guys came to GaryCon.
Exactly,
you. We
we're
are too.
excited. We've had you on before, but never in person, I don't think. right?
No, we've never done this live, and I've got to meet Shelly for the first time at GaryCon,
Yep.
so it's a real pleasure.
It's super exciting.
Beautiful meeting.
It was a beautiful meeting, a meeting of
The
minds.
Gygax family hugs, which I like.
We're huggers.
You're
It's
all huggers.
Yeah, GaryCon is a place for hugging and
I know.
having fun.
And reuniting. So
That's
that should be your
awesome.
tagline.
Yeah, you go.
Hug and have fun.
And this is 11. I can't believe it's been that
Yeah.
long.
Yeah, it's flown by. I can't believe we're working on a second decade. Obviously, GaryCon, the roots of it are in, my father passed away at March 4th of 2008. And we had a gathering afterwards. So many people showed up who were, just not only family and friends, but game aficionados who just wanted to be there and to show respect. And so it just seemed the right thing to do to get together and play games and, watch the old D&D cartoon and stuff like that and be able to share, there was a podium so people could share their favorite story about my dad. And we also, my sisters made some food to pass around. So it was like a wake, I guess, but it was a gaming party wake, and people shared their stories, and they had, it was just the right way to remember them, and there was such a positive feeling. It was very cathartic to have all those folks there, and I believe it was Jolly. Someone suggested to me, "Hey, Luke, this was a lot of fun. You should do it again next year." And I said, "Yeah, it'd be a great way to remember my dad." And Jolly Blackburn, who makes the Knights of the Dinner Table comic, told me we could make it GaryCon. He said, "You can call it GaryCon." And I didn't know why he came up with that name at the time, because I didn't realize that was the fictional name of their convention that they have in his world for Gary Jackson, who's a mix of Gary Gygax and Steve Jackson.
Makes sense.
Gary Jackson, right. So they
Didn't
call
know.
it GaryCon. That's their Gen Con convention.
Yeah.
So, so he gave me permission to use the name. I didn't know, but it fit perfectly. And here we are, and we've gathered each year, and it's just gotten bigger and bigger and just more exciting each year, but it still is a family reunion at heart, and so that's why you get that feeling when you're here that it's welcoming, and there's a lot of camaraderie around the table, and that's something that's very important. My brothers and sisters and I really enjoy that aspect of it. So I really am thankful for everybody who comes here.
Well, it's really touching because there is the empty chair that has been at each one of these. I was lucky enough to be at GaryCon, I think 3, and maybe 4 as well. And that was something that always struck me was this memorial that you had set up for the empty chair. Do you want to talk about that for a second? Because it's right outside these doors where we're recording right now.
Yeah, right. And of course, this is about, it's a memorial convention to honor the life and works of Gary Gygax, my father. And so we have a table set up, and we always have, with an empty chair there. And oftentimes we put picture collages, behind it just to show my dad in life, and doing things that he'd like to do. But we have some of the artifacts that he kept by his desk. Obviously, his gaming books, his D&D books are there. A bird book. My dad loved to bird watch, so when he was sitting out on his porch, he would have a little pair of binos or even sometimes a little telescope, and he would, if he saw a bird, he'd look at it and then open up the bird book and see what kind of bird it was. Just an interest he had since he was a kid. I think his mom enjoyed birds, and she passed that on to him.
That's really cool. And you know what's funny is my daughter loves birds, and we started having a bird feeder out and showing off the different ones in the Pacific Northwest.
Yes.
And I believe the friends of ours who do some bird watching were like, "Oh, you have to get so-and-so brand of bird book for her. She would love it. She'd be able to identify him." And I believe it's the same brand that you have there that Gary used to use.
Absolutely. And then there's like an atlas, a historical atlas, so what tribes were where, and where the invasions and what time it was and stuff.
Really?
So that sort of stuff. And he always had stacks of esoteric books and that sort of thing around, because he was an avid reader. So he'd be reading on the porch in the morning, or or in the evening, or after, whenever it was, and kind of formulating ideas. And then he'd go to his typewriter. When I was young, he was he was a Luddite, so he was a late conversion to computers. And then he would type his manuscripts or then input them on the computer later on. But he'd kind of build all these things up, and then he'd sit down and write, and he'd be going at it. So, and now I understand. As a kid, I never understood how he could do this, but I find myself doing it sometimes as well. I would ask him. He'd be sitting at his typewriter typing after I got home from school, and I'd reading through a D&D module or book or reading a manuscript, and I'd come up with a question. I'd ask him it, and then he would continue on as if he hadn't heard me because he was totally in the zone, right? And when you're writing, you have to be able to do that. And then like 10 minutes later, he would say something. I was like, what? He's like, oh, you asked me this question. Then he'd provide the answer to me. I was like, oh, okay, thanks, Dad. Because I'd already forgotten about it. I was, as a kid, you're on. Yeah. So he was holding that question in the back of his head, but he was, he's totally focused on getting this thought, completed. So, but yeah,
really interesting. We don't do that with our current children now, right?
No.
We just like ignore every question that they might have. I'll get to it later. When
Usually I just say, ask Alexa.
I do that too, especially when it's like, how do you spell something? Because that's the way.
Because I don't know the
I don't know how to spell things, and she does. So it's very
yeah.
good.
I'm trying to get him used to the idea, of like, find your own answers, do your own research.
Ask different,
Different
robots.
Robots in our house. Go find a robot.
that doesn't work. I answer the same question about Gary Con online to people like
Multiple
hundreds of times.
I wonder what Alexa would say if I asked her. Alexa, what is Gary Con?
Oh, right. Is there a Wikipedia entry for Gary
There is a
Con?
Wikipedia
I
for
might
Gary Con, yeah.
Just recite that.
Yep.
So your gig is or day job, I guess, is doing logistics, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So in some ways, doing a Gary Con like this is, it's in the same vein.
It
right?
is. It's a giant project management, that's for sure. Yeah. It's a lot of work to run a convention, but the payoff is coming here and seeing everyone happy and just like the tens of thousands of hours of happiness that is created makes those long nights where with the blurry eyes, at midnight where you're trying to, nug through the grunt work that makes the wheels turn of a convention.
Yeah.
It's totally worth it. And I would be totally remiss if I didn't thank all of the staff that helps me throughout the year and the volunteers who come here and do stuff from help unloading trucks to, selling the t-shirts and everything. Thanks to all of them. We couldn't do it without a lot of help.
It's like D&D.
Yeah.
Everybody comes together.
It's a team sport.
Bringing different
Common goal.
skills to the table,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, it is one of the happiest conventions I've ever been at. Like, there is just a lot of joy.
That I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah.
It really is. Yeah, that's great. And like I said, man, just wonderful to see so many people excited to be here and just kind of bringing their A game and their, I guess the biggest compliment I heard is someone said Gary Con is like a family reunion, but it's with the family that you chose. It's your gaming family. So you're really happy to be there. Yeah.
That is really sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because for a lot of people, this is the family that they've chosen. These are their people.
Yep.
And there is that feeling when you walk into a gaming convention, and I think Gary Con is probably one of the better examples of this, where you're just like, I don't have to explain what Dungeons and Dragons is to anybody here. I don't have to, make any, odd concessions for anything. You're like, no, these are my people, and I feel 100% comfortable here.
Yep. You can make the obscure Highlander reference. And everyone's going to get it. You don't have to
This is your
explain it. Yes.
There's someone cosplaying as Zardoz.
Yeah,
You
that was
fit right
great.
in.
Awesome.
For real?
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. I didn't realize what it was until he stopped me to talk, and I was like, and he's like, and then he mentioned Zardoz. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
have you played any of Waterdeep Dragon Heist? And he's like, no, I haven't looked at it yet. I'm like, oh. You should. There's at least one image in there that will, tickle your Zardoz funny bone. It's the ship captain, and
awesome.
Yeah, I remember that guy specifically because he contacted me and said, hey, I'm going to cosplay as Zardoz, but I just wanted to make sure, would it be okay? I'm going to wear a, flesh-colored T-shirt and that sort of stuff. So I'm not exposing too much skin or anything like that. Is that
looks
okay?
like hairy Sean Connery.
Yeah, definitely did. And I said, yes, that's fine.
I like that he asked, though.
Well, yeah. Well, that's very important, keeping it family-friendly and safe space. It is like a family reunion, and lots of people bring their children. So
That's true.
we got to look out for that.
Running around having
did
fun.
you? That's my favorite, though.
Yep.
I love seeing the kids and the parents together. It just warms my heart.
Breaks your heart.
Yeah.
I know.
And
I was
like
talking
introducing it to a whole new generation.
last night I was playing this adventure salvage operation, which was awesome. It's written by Chris Lindsay. He'll be dungeon mastering that, I believe, tonight at this very table.
I'll be there. Is this the game you're in?
The game will be here.
Are you in that?
Yeah, I'm in the game too. Yep. Yeah, I know. We're gonna game.
That's
Isn't that
awesome.
crazy?
I know.
It
I
is.
wish
Just like
I'm
gonna
not, because
play-
I have a dungeon mastering assignment. until like, yeah. So I won't be able to make it. But I'm glad that you guys are going to be able to play it. And and when I played last night, it was like what you're mentioning. It was like a father and his kids playing together. They were teenagers, so it wasn't quite like little kids, but it was a lot of fun.
I love seeing that.
Yeah. And the best part is, like you said, it's GaryCon 11. There's little ones who've come here from the very earliest conventions, and now they're running. They're DM. Like
Really?
they started like it was probably GaryCon 4. Yeah, like Rich Franks and Jim Scatch's children, and the Petries. They've all been here for early GaryCons, and they came with small children who are now in high school and
All
college.
grown up.
Yeah, and they're grown up, and they'll run games and stuff. And
Yeah, that's right.
They're skipping school
skipping
for
school.
dangerous
GaryCon.
Dungeons and Dragons.
But this is a key learning. So learning how to be a dungeon master at an early age will serve them well in their future.
And all of the Seattle people who are here is like, this is a key learning about how to deal with accumulations of snow.
How to deal with like actually cold weather.
There's like what 5-6 inches on the ground right now.
Seems
and
more.
it's like, nobody cares.
But
Everyone's like,
the
we can drive.
sidewalks
We know
and
how
the
to do
roads are
it.
dry.
Yeah.
Did you notice that?
I do. Yeah.
They didn't just
because
leave it
right.
to just keep freezing.
It's salted up a little bit, which we can't do in the Pacific Northwest because of the water tables and the salmon.
Salmon don't like
Oh,
that.
right.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
So that's it makes it a little bit easier here when they can just put salt down and make it happen. But it's real cold.
It's
is
so
very
cold.
cold.
It was what 23 degrees
But it
Fahrenheit
just feels
this morning.
colder. A Midwest
Oh,
23
that's
is like
warm. we were
Un-
offloading
other-
trucks at 8 degrees to set this thing up. It's 8 degrees during the daytime.
Yeah.
8.
that's like
Sun
the
shining
high.
and it's
It was 8 degrees.
Oh man.
Yeah, and of course I grew up here. It's my hometown. However, I've spent over a decade in California, so
Yeah.
I'm not
And
used to that
Southern
weather.
California. At
Yeah,
that.
and I'm in
you get-
SoCal now, so
you
I
get
was like,
soft
no.
when you leave it.
Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
true. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. But you talked about skipping school, and that reminded me. I did write a letter to someone's school in England. An English gentleman brought his daughter, Simon. He brought his daughter, and so he wanted to get excused absence to bring her to the United States and do many things, including GaryCon. So I wrote about what gaming was like and some of those things that would help get the approval for her to come, because it's an educational trip. I thought it
totally
was
is.
part of an educational trip.
Did
and
it
I thought
work?
that was neat. Yeah, they came and they had a great time, and I think I'm probably preaching to the choir here when I say that role-playing gaming actually is something that gives you great leadership skills,
Yes.
and from just simply learning to speak on think quickly, adapt, improvise, persuasive speech, public speaking, all sorts of things that you will practice later on in life whether you're working in the boardroom or just with teamwork and groups or whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
That's really important, and I think gamers get that practice all the time. They just don't realize that they're actually gaining life skills.
No, you
They're
can't
having
tell them
fun.
that. Then they'll- if they
That's
think
what's
it's like
great about
learning.
games, right? Is that
Yeah.
it doesn't feel like work, but
Yep.
at the same time, you're still gaining. If you're talking about video games, sometimes you learn logic and
Sure.
that type of things, and then that follows through with tabletop role playing games.
Yep.
But I think what they do is that it's empathy, which is the thing you can't really teach unless you're experiencing it, right? You're
Yeah.
putting yourself in someone else's shoes, even if it is an idealized version of the character that you've created. You're not yourself when you're playing your character, and I think that is this. I keep thinking about that as being the core thing that D&D can teach people.
Yeah.
Especially
certainly-
nowadays.
Yeah, well, yes, and I think that's an important aspect, and that's maybe one of the reasons why we're seeing an uptick once again in playing D&D is people are
Right.
rediscovering how fun it is, and it's also a way to get us away from our screens
Yeah.
Mhm.
and to talk, face to face, and to laugh and interact, and it's an easy way to do that. Much like, gosh, even since the very first days of gaming, a lot of people who had some social angst or difficulty relating to people, you're right, when they assumed a persona, they were then able to think, oh, I'm this persona, so this is how this person would
Yeah.
do things, and they were able to interact with people and kind
Yeah.
of learn and basically train themselves, get those reps in for socialization, and it helped them out.
Yeah.
And so same thing, maybe we're so used to looking to screens, I think I'm going to sound like an old guy now.
Nope.
Some of those young whippersnappers out there, have trouble talking to people face to face. They're less comfortable. They want to text people, but gaming will help you get over that, and you can
Yeah.
be comfortable talking face to face.
For sure.
Yeah, we talk to a lot of therapists, psychologists that use D&D in their practice.
Yep.
For those very reasons.
Yeah, it's an amazing tool.
It
It
is.
is.
It is. Are you playing D&D with your kids for that reason?
I do. I play D&D with them because that's what my dad did with me. So
Oh.
it's kind of like a family tradition. Yeah, I've been gaming since I was 4 years old, and that's how I've made a lot of friends. That's how I see the world through gaming terms a lot of times, which I think when you're talking to other gamers, you can do that.
Right.
But I just wanted my daughters to have that joy of, the imagination, how awesome it is to, be that different character and do these wondrous things. And I just opened it up full. I said, okay, we're gonna play 5th edition, and we're gonna go for it. So I had a D&D Beyond account, and so I just opened up all the rules and I said, just read down, what do you want to be? And I ended up with a Minotaur Paladin,
Nice.
a Wood Elf sorcerer, and this is very odd, a Bugbear Ranger.
Oh.
So,
I almost made a Bugbear Ranger.
It's really cool, yeah. So, but that's my youngest daughter. She's Serena Elf Friend, and so she was a bugbear who, the elves were ridding their woods of an evil tribe of bugbears. But there was a cute little baby bugbear, and they didn't want to kill the baby bugbear, so they raised the baby bugbear, and she's been
Great
raised by
backstory.
elves, so she's
Yeah.
not. She
A
may
bugbear
look,
raised by elves.
yeah, she may look big
It's
and
like
hulking
stands with a
and
fist.
evil. Yeah. And but she has she's of a goodly nature, but she faces some stigma because people assume that she's evil when they see her and that sort of
Yeah.
stuff. So she has to
Again,
earn their
good
trust. And
lessons.
exactly. Don't judge a book by its cover all the time.
Yes.
That sort of stuff. Yeah.
How
So-
old are your daughters?
So she's 5. My middle daughter, Amira, is 8. She's playing the sorcerer. And, of course, she's more the girly girl. She's a noble as her background, so
Princess.
she's a princess.
Yeah,
Yes. and then the oldest one, Miriam, she's 11, almost 12, and she's playing the Minotaur Paladin as a male character because she likes the tanks. So she just wanted, I want big and,
Nice.
horns and, armor. And, yeah. So she wants to go hack and slash and
They're
do
also
stuff.
different. What if that's a
yeah.
fun D&D party right
The rest
there?
of them want to talk to the.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I wanted some encounter where some goblins had been there, and I said, yeah, they were at a farm, and there was dead sheep or something like that. And they're like, oh no, not the sheep. I was like, oh, I better be careful
What? Did I say
how I'm describing.
Can we save the sheep?
Yeah. Okay, you can. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So,
funny. The
yeah.
first time I played with my daughters, where they're 7 and 5, and my oldest daughter actually is less into the combat kind of part of it, but she loves animals and she loves talking to them. So I was trying to do an adventure that wasn't too in the weeds, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, you're gonna go and fight some wolves that have been killing sheep in the area, right? And there's a large one that's really snarling, and I described it. I was like, it's really tough, and it's coming for you, and it's about to charge. And she's like, I want to give it some food and pet it. And I'm like, all right, roll your D20 to do it. She got a natural 20.
Okay.
Oh,
And so I was like,
she
all right,
befriended
so
it.
this thing's barreling down at you, snarling everywhere, going to kill you. And it immediately stops and starts snuffling your face and is your friend now, I suppose. So you have a pet slavering wolf for that. Yeah, and so you make the fantasy up the way you want it to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And same thing. They made 3rd level, and the ranger became a beastmaster, and so she has a big wolf that's her
nice.
That's her friend. So
Yeah.
that's important. They like that sort of
It's
thing.
true, and
Yeah.
I like it too. I mean, that's one of my
Me
favorite
too.
parts of.
I love having animal companions.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about Oso de la
Oh,
Fez.
yep. My illegal familiar. It's fantasy though.
Yeah.
I can have them.
It doesn't matter. Nice.
Yep, my imaginary friend.
So we recently introduced Ghost of Saltmarsh, coming May 21st to everywhere. This is the cover is here behind us in all of its glory. You probably can't see
Lots of
all of it right
tentacles.
now, but in a weird coincidence, happenstance, your key image here for Gary Con 11 is also very nautical themed.
It is. There's the story behind that is the picture is the Pirate Queen, and the beautiful artwork is by Charles Urbach, just a very, very talented artist. So thanks, Charles, for doing this image. And last year I did like a solar fighting a lich, and the
On your shirt.
oh yeah, that's the lich. That's the lich on the shirt. And then the main image was a piece of artwork by Jeff Butler, and the face of the solar looks a lot like my dad. So it's and the idea there was death. We're keeping my death represented by the lich and the skeletons being defeated by my dad is there with a flaming sword and defeating him. So he's living on. He's defeating death through Gary Khan and everyone remembering him in as we gather here. And then for the next one, they're like, well, you've done your father's image, something to honor your dad, something to represent that. How about doing something for your mom? And I was like, well, she was the Pirate Queen. And she got that name from Fritz Leiber, who's a famous science fiction and fantasy author who did Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser, amongst other things.
Nice.
And my dad was talking to him to bring him to Gen Con 10 in 1978, I believe. And so they went up to talk to him probably in 77. And he took a shine to my mom. He was an older gentleman, but I guess he liked my mom and thought she was a beautiful lady. And he'd seen her, she had a little bit of a temper at that time. And so he nicknamed her the Pirate Queen, and he had a little statuette made for that was more like a swashbuckling, bronze statuette.
That's cool.
And yeah, it was really cool. So she enjoyed that, that title of the Pirate Queen. And so I thought, okay, that's the Pirate Queen. And so I gave some pictures of my mom to Charles, and he did an excellent job of recreating how she looked in the 70s. And we made her into the Pirate Queen. And I just made her. She's more clothed in this version than the one that Fritz Leiber had. There was more of a 70s swashbuckling style. Yeah. But I said, hey, that's my mom, so let's we're gonna keep that. She's gonna wear more clothes in this version. So
makes sense, right?
But yeah, no.
When you're on the high seas, you need to cover up.
It's windy. Yeah. There's a lot of salt spray. You just got to be careful. So, but yeah, and then we wrote the module for this year. I do a dungeon, module, D&D module every year, tournament here. And this year we had the Pirate Queen, and we called her Jo Marie, which my mom's name is Mary Jo, so I just switched her around, and put her in my fictional world of Oak Rim, and she's actually an elemental master who has a flying ship and a Snake Man crew. And
that's cool.
So,
nice.
So it's pretty neat. So we tied it all in there, and it's really neat. And you guys are doing a nautical theme as well. So.
I know, right?
Yeah. So it just worked out perfectly. Yeah.
Now you can drop that adventure into your Salt Marsh campaign pretty easily.
There you go.
Right?
Yeah.
Is that available anywhere, or is that a Gary Con exclusive?
It's a Gary Con exclusive, but you know what? So many people have asked me about it and said, "Oh, wait, you write modules too?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, I've done a few."
Yeah.
and there's some out there, but I need to go ahead and make that available in PDF format, which I think is probably the easiest way to deliver things these days.
I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah. So I'll go through and I'll edit them, and who knows? Maybe someday Right now they're in a compatible with some older AD&D and other retro clones. Mm-hmm. But I may reskin them and make them 5e.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, and if you do that,
compatible.
the Dungeon Masters Guild might be perfect for something like that.
Yeah, that'd be
And
wonderful.
I just noticed, I've seen this image many times before, but that on her hat is the
ampersand.
Is that an ampersand?
No, it looks similar.
Similar.
Yeah, it's a dragon coiled around.
I think it is. Yes.
I want that hat.
I know. I want that pirate hat too.
It's a beautiful hat.
Random.
Yeah, I didn't notice that until it was a little bigger as well.
Yeah, to be honest with you. Right, because at the small image, you're like, oh yeah, that's just a cool design or something like that, insignia.
Absolutely. There's all sorts of neat Easter eggs in this artwork, including, there's polyhedral dice in the dice chest, and there's the rose petal. The sword has a rose petal guard on it, and
oh, neat.
Yeah, it's just the amount of detail he put in there is amazing. And Charles said, doing this for Gary Con was as close as he could get to working for, my dad at TSR back in those days. And so he really put a lot of effort. And he was like, when I said, "Oh, this is amazing, I love it," he's like, "Oh, it's just like a lot of pressure to do. Like, take this, draw a picture of my mom for Gary Con. Right. Oh, no pressure, Charles." But he delivered.
Don't screw it up.
Yeah. So he was feeling a lot of pressure, but. Just another funny thing in the mixing of old and new. So we're blessed to have some really great artists who happen to be relatively local. Jeff Easley and Jeff Butler, and we had Clyde Caldwell come one year, and Larry Elmore is here. So we get a lot of Diesel, just a lot of old with classic artists, and then. Charles Urbach came and wanted to be an artist here, so we had him in, and he was telling me, "Oh, I'm here because I just wanted to. I'm so inspired. All these guys that you have, they're the ones who inspired me to go into art, and just what a great opportunity to be shoulder to shoulder with them." And then my little brother Alex came to me, and he's a big Magic player, he's like, wow, I'm really glad GaryCon is like getting bigger. Like we've really hit the big time. We even have Charles Urbach here. He does like magic cards and that sort of stuff. So, yeah, he's like, yeah, we're attracting like this. So I told Charles that, and he laughed. He thought that was great, because he's coming to see his inspirations, and my little brother, who's a big magic fan, was excited to see Charles, who's done some magic stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yep.
I went out to dinner on Wednesday night after we got here, and there's a couple of people sitting around the table, and I was just introducing myself to a lot of the people I didn't know, and the person sitting to my left, he introduced himself as, "Hi, I'm Errol."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh my gosh, Errol Otis!
Yeah,
I've never seen your signature.
It's everywhere. You're so good." So then we ended up having a wonderful conversation talking about what he's going to be running here at GaryCon. Oddly enough, it was also nautically themed.
Weird.
It was first edition Dungeons and Dragons set on an island out in sea that was just where his home campaign is right now. And I'm like, gosh, that's so crazy how things just kind of enter into the zeitgeist, and people are like, oh, this is what everyone's going to be doing this year, with like no communication about any of it at all.
Yep.
But it was just I love talking to him and seeing that. I don't know, that excitement of what it's like having these artists that worked on and writers who worked on Dungeons and Dragons back in the 70s here, and that was always, back when I came, was a thrill that this just seemed like a TSR reunion to a certain extent.
In fact, on Saturday night we hold a TSR reunion party. Yeah, just for it. It doesn't matter if you are Larry Elmore or Margaret Weiss, or if you're the lady in accounting who was there. That's fine. It's a TSR reunion party. And we just, host some drinks and some beverages for them, and they really enjoy that. And that's just one of those little nice things that we can do to say thank you to them for all the support and all the things all this stuff that they've done for us.
It's interesting how many of them are still local to Lake Geneva too. Like they came here or were here to begin with, and then it's worked on. Like when you were here as a kid, did it feel like the whole town knew?
It was the biggest employer.
Knew your dad?
Yes, it was the biggest employer. So it's a great family story, and it's definitely something I need to write a book about. I mean, I've got a couple books in me, but there's a great story. I mean, people don't realize my dad was a cobbler. He was a shoe repairman.
Oh, yeah.
And he had 5 kids. And shoe repair is not a high-paying job. So if you're looking into that for your future, you may want to, just be aware. It's important.
It's
it's good to,
But,
reutilize, reuse, recycle.
Yes.
We want to keep our shoes as opposed to throwing away. But seriously, he was a shoe repairman, and we were desperately poor. And he believed in making Dungeons and Dragons, right? So he was the black sheep of the family. We were on food support. My mom, food stamps. And my mom gardened to sustain us. So like she would can stuff, and we would eat.
Wow.
That's how we survived, and she'd bake her own bread and everything. So we
5 kids, you gotta.
We were poor, no car, none of that stuff. I wore hand-me-down winter clothes for my sisters because I was, they were the older ones.
It was very fashionable.
Yes, I looked great. But so my dad, tried to sell the idea of D&D to Avalon Hill and to Guidon Games, who were the
D&D could be mine.
Yes, it could be. But they laughed at him. They scoffed.
Come on.
And so he took him and his best friend.
Instead, they were publishing Smokers Wild.
Some strange stuff.
They could have had D&D.
Yeah.
What is Smokers Wild?
It's one of the old Avalon.
Really? I thought you made that up. Okay.
No way.
Yeah.
It's a real thing.
Wow.
It's a real thing.
It's a real thing.
Yeah. But he gambled on it, and his best friend took out a loan on his life insurance, and he risked everything to print Dungeons and Dragons, and they made 1,000 copies, and then it picked up. And so he went from this guy who people kind of pointed fingers at and were like, don't be like that guy, to, oh, Mr. Gygax, it's so happy to see you here. Thank you for coming.
Really?
It shifted that much.
Yeah.
So what did people? So TSR was the largest employer.
Yeah, they had 300 employees.
Did people get what they were putting out, or were they
it's really a strange thing to me. So if anyone from the city of Lake Geneva is listening, Gary Gygax is the most important son of Lake Geneva, as far in my opinion. Who else has impacted hundreds of millions of people around the globe?
Yeah.
He invented the role-playing genre. That's
It did not exist.
It did not exist. There was no such thing.
You look at every video game out there. If it's got levels or experience
the
points,
architecture,
anything, it's all from what your dad made up.
It all harkens back to that, and so why they wouldn't want Lake Geneva to be on the map as a destination for people, I don't know. But just for GaryCon, there's a gentleman here who brought his young son, probably 10 maybe at most, from Bangkok, Thailand, to come to GaryCon.
Oh, my
Another guy
God.
comes from Australia. He's been here
It's
a couple
that
years.
important.
Another person from England. He said, he told me last night, he's like, I was making a once-in-a-lifetime trip last year, but I had so much fun, I'm coming back again, and I want to come back as long
Now
as I
it's
can.
twice in a lifetime.
Yeah. So and hopefully next year it'll be a third in a lifetime. Yeah, so it's just, there's that kind of draw based on it being here in Lake Geneva,
Yeah.
the home. You can go to 330 Center Street and you can tour it, you can stay next door. I think there's a bed and breakfast next door. The lady who owns it is very understanding, and she appreciates that it's a kind of a cultural landmark. But yeah, no one has gotten any official recognition of that. The only marker there is to my father here is something my brothers and sisters and I did. We put a carved tile in the fountain down by the Riviera that has a D20 with a dragon sleeping on top of it, and says Gary Gygax, beloved father, and that sort of stuff.
That's really
yeah.
neat.
It is pretty incredible, like being here. This is my first trip here.
Yes.
Like to be here, like just walking around like this area, like this is like you can kind of feel like the magic in the air. Like this is really where it all began.
Yeah. Yeah.
So many people's lives were impacted from that moment on.
And you said you actually went traveling. You actually walked around
I did.
here. So there's something about this area that gives people wanderlust. I
It
think.
did. I know. I was telling Greg, I'm like, I just wandered this whole. I got like 23,000 steps yesterday.
Oh,
Because
wow.
I just
Good
took
for you.
off, and I
Yeah.
just was like, I just need to be out here, and I didn't even. It was like 20 degrees, and I'm wearing my sneakers and no socks, and just
The no socks I don't
Yeah,
understand.
frost-
just
Frostbite
trucking
ankles.
along. I'm just like,
I would have
this
been
is
like 40
amazing.
layers.
No, it was like I don't know. I was really on my own little adventure.
I got 21,000 steps, but that's because I'm down in building 1 and I just had to walk back.
Yeah, you're just-
Inside joke. There's not.
You're walking all through here. Yeah, that was like me at the Street of Many Eyes, where I'm like, God, how do I have 40,000 steps today? It's just because of walking to make
Yep,
sure
just
everything's
walking.
working.
Yep.
Yep, I know that feeling.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I have a friend of mine, Tavis Allison, has a theory that the Midwest architecture and somewhat desolation in the wintertime
yeah.
versus, and then the idea of there being farmsteads that have gone in disrepair, and you go in and discover those and you find treasures in these abandoned places that some of that feeling of the location of Lake Geneva and Wisconsin and Midwest in general fed into what made Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, certainly. My dad always had an avid imagination. I remember him talking about he had an imaginary friend, Pumpy and Juice. So when he was a kid, up to 3 years old, and then he stops. But he had imaginary friends.
Now he's got 40 million.
Yeah, exactly. But he always had an avid imagination. He was reading, science fiction, fantasy, all that stuff. But his dad told him bedtime stories as a kid too, with about sorcerers and magic rings and stuff like that. So he always had that going for him. And as a 13 or something, there was an abandoned sanitarium that was in disrepair.
Ooh.
And so you weren't supposed to trespass on it, but apparently
No.
kids would go in there, and older kids would be, smoking cigarettes or drinking in there. But he would just climb around and explore. And other people would be salvaging metals and stuff out of there. So it was kind of like a dangerous place. You had to kind of break in and climb through places or find the secret entrance, down to the basement, and then you could crawl around some of the. So he loved that place. And it was dangerous and dilapidated and stuff. So there was roof parts that would be falling through. So you had to be careful to watch
You
your
needed a
step.
10-foot
Yeah,
pole
exactly. So
to test the area.
Yeah. So
Laying the
that's
groundwork
where
right
Yeah.
that's where a lot of that imagination came from. And he lived in an old Victorian house on Dodge Street here that is the Burdick family home that his mother was actually born on the dining room table there in whatever 18 something. And his dad, his great
Wait,
great
why on the
grandfather
dining room
built
table? That's
because there was no hospital around.
where
It's
they did
that's
it.
where there was a table. Yeah.
I mean, they could have done it on the bed, I guess, but
Yeah.
maybe
Right.
it's easier to.
it's like an
clean up.
operating table.
Yeah.
It's
I
like
guess
it's
a little
perfect.
higher up,
Yeah,
maybe it's not-
exactly.
Yeah, but so there's a lot of history. But his old house, and I remember telling about various supernatural incidents that whether he wasn't making it up, he didn't, he wasn't insane or anything, but he was like, yeah, these things occurred. So he believed in some of those. There was other supernatural forces out there of some kind, and he was a pretty religious person at various times in his life. So I kind of thought it was always funny during the Satanic Panic. People were saying the game was, the game is from Satan and he's a servant of Satan. I was like, really? I had to go to church a whole lot if that was the case. I don't know.
How did I get this bum deal?
Yeah. I spent a lot of hours sitting in church and saying our prayers and stuff. So
That is funny.
so no, he had a faith in that sort of thing, and the Satanic Panic. I don't think young people today would get it. We're playing D&D and how,
Right.
I hear Joe talk about that. Joe Manganiello talk about how, it was kind of something that was, it was you're kind of a different idea. But you were doing something that was off the beaten trail. You weren't like one of the mainstream folks because you were playing D&D and doing this, fantasy stuff. And that's
There was,
pretty
there
cool.
was a big, in last couple episodes we were talking about the 80s and how like boat shoes and like weird fashions were going on there, and I was like, God, I can't remember those boat shoes. Everybody had those.
something wrong
But
with
there was something.
Tell me I shouldn't wear my
no,
boat
no,
shoes?
they're fantastic.
Okay, cool.
But I don't know if you remember in the 80s, but it seemed like everybody was wearing that with no socks.
Yes.
And boat
Yep,
shoes,
yep.
like you were about to go on a yacht. When I never understood. But there were just these. It was a different time in which just the common wisdom of things just were known. And I think that was what happened with Dungeons and Dragons, where it was just you didn't know much about it, but what you did know was this vaguely negative feeling about like, oh, that's not good. And that was heavy metal music was that same vein.
Yeah.
And maybe it was cultural. Like my parents were hardcore Catholic, and I went to church all the time too.
Yeah.
So that was just like the friends and people that they talked to. They just spread those kind of ideas pretty quickly without knowing really what was entailing in this game. And I think now. There's just so much of a spread of ideas through the internet and people that we don't even know, like that it's not so insulated in just like what a specific community is talking about, and that might be all you're exposed to, that and the 4 channels that were on television. But now that we have so many different ways to get that information, it's a way to dispel a lot of those myths in some ways.
And you're right, and I think that's very true. Margaret was telling me a story last night. Margaret Weiss, we have certain guys buy a premium badge and they help really support the convention in this beautiful resort. Mm-hmm. And so I hold a dinner for them and I invite some guests, and we had both, Margaret Weiss was there and Larry Elmore stopped in, but Joe Manganiello was asking about Dragonlance and some stories, and Margaret shared that Tracy Hickman, who co-authored those books with her, I guess he was a devout Mormon. And during the Satanic Panic, he's working for the company, and the elders came out to visit him, and they're like, you may need to. We're going to excommunicate
this up a little
you.
bit, yeah.
We're going to excommunicate you unless you quit your job, because this is wrong. And he's like, well, I tell you what, come together, please give me a chance. I'll run a game of Dungeons and Dragons for you.
No way.
And if you think it's bad and satanic after we do that, then I will quit my job. And they came and he ran a game for him, and they had so much fun they asked him to make it a weekly game. And they started becoming gamers.
Way.
That's the story. I wasn't there, but that's the story. I was like, wow, I never knew that, and that's really cool. So Tracy Hickman was here last year, and I wish I'd known that story because that was amazing. I would want to hear it from him and just be like, wow, that's a lot of conviction.
Yeah.
Because there were some creative folks who, at the demands of their family, stepped away.
Oh, really?
Yeah, David Trampier. I believe, I don't want to speak out of school. I never confirmed this with him personally or anything, but my understanding is his wife just became very religious and decided that this was a bad thing. And Trampier is amazing.
Trampiers are amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, right. It became this like just that's what it was, and you just took it as fact in some weird way, right? And it's really nice to see that fact pretty much not anywhere now. I mean, I say this a lot, but when we went to HasCon in 2017, it was a Hasbro convention, lots of kids and families there, and I had all their D&D minis out, and we're trying to show them what it was, and obviously the kids were excited to play with dice and the minis and all that stuff, but it was the parents lighting up and being like, wait, our kids can talk to each other, and they're pretending with their friends, and they're learning how to read, and they're seeing these images, and they're like, how can we get this so that they're not looking at screens all the time and everything like that. And it was this awe, and to me it was the real first experience where strangers, people I didn't know, parents of young children were excited about Dungeons and Dragons, and it was
And I
amazing.
think it's funny, but part of that is probably through streaming. So part of looking at your screen is going to help you learn about how to play D&D out of it.
It's right here.
Yeah. Because streams are super popular, as we know, and I'll take the opportunity to bump my streaming event besides this one. That's
That was a
later
real
today.
subtle
That
segue
was,
into plugging yourself
Yeah.
there. Right?
But yeah, the first stream I did was Founders and Legends Day.
That was tons of fun.
That was great, and that was July of 2018, and we're going to do it again in July. I think it's Saturday and Sunday, 27, 28.
Right.
And we're going to get together and play games and talk about the founding of our gaming roots and take the opportunity to tell people about some of the people who are like here at GaryCon and have a huge role in our history, as well as play some really awesome games.
Yeah.
As well. So that was a great ton of fun, and because it was so much fun, we're gonna stream
Just
here
do
at
it again.
GaryCon too.
Right?
Yeah,
It's gonna be the once in a lifetime, twice in a
yeah,
lifetime.
this once in a lifetime stream may become a yearly thing, just because it was a blast. Mike Merle's fantastic.
Yeah.
GM.
Yeah. Well, I was around when you guys were discussing that game,
Yeah.
and the thing that I remember always is how everyone was like, I forgot it was even being streamed. Like I thought the cameras were off at that point,
Yeah.
and it was just people in their home game rolling dice,
Yep.
and it just happened to be filmed.
Yeah,
And I think that's great.
it was epic. Yeah. So yeah, I love that, and gosh, I went and I saw the stream of Many Eyes that you guys did. I'm looking forward to the next one of those. That was so much fun. Like
It was really great seeing the pictures of you with all your family there in the middle of Waterdeep.
Yeah, my daughters loved that. They
Yeah.
thought it was really neat. So, what a time to grow up in, right? I mean, how amazing.
I know.
But what a time you grew up in,
Yeah.
too, though.
That's true.
Did you know at the time, like, that D&D was special? Or was it just like, that's my dad's job? That's what he does.
Kind of. Yeah, so it was pretty normal to me. I mean, but yeah, now that I'm older and I can reflect upon it, it was really cool. I got to hang out and game with guys like, Jim Ward. It was like a regular,
As one does.
yeah, Jim Ward and,
He's
obviously
here,
my
right?
dad and, Zeb Cook and, Mike Gray, who's a great game designer. Just tons and tons, tons of amazing creative folks were there, and my games were pretty amazing.
But you kind of took it for granted.
but I
You're
took
like,
it for
oh, yeah,
granted.
oh,
Yeah,
man,
it's
this is
just
just
your
what everyone's
dad's-
games are like.
Yeah.
Everyone's drawing on the level of...
Dad's
Yeah.
coworkers.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I know. He's going, come on, Uncle
Gotta
Zeb.
hang out with the dad's coworkers.
Yeah, because I could just poke my head into the offices there as a kid, and it would be Dave Sutherland at the drafting table drawing up stuff, Tramp, and
That's just
Diesel
amazing,
and
yeah.
Jeff Lee, all those guys. I mean, Skip Williams was a neighborhood friend of my brother's. So Rob Kuntz, who's an early designer, he literally was almost adopted by my family. So yeah, he was just their neighborhood kids. Oh, Art and Arcana, what a great book! I'm sorry to.
Yes, isn't that fantastic?
Yeah.
Oh,
I love, because right, a lot of the stuff we're talking about,
Yeah.
some fans of 5th edition may not know, but
Yes.
if you go to Art and Arcana, and you'll see all of this artworks tracing from before they were even published.
Yeah,
Some of them.
If you want to know a little bit about the roots of gaming and stuff, I would say Empire of Imagination from a guy, Michael Whitwer.
Yes.
Great guy.
The graphic novel of that is fantastic.
The graphic novel's good too, and then of course Art and Arcana was put together by Michael Whitwer, Sam Whitwer, John Peterson, and Kyle Newman, all avid gamers, obviously, and they just went through and they just laid it out, and it's really funny to read. I was a kid at the time, so I didn't know in 1973 when they're laying out the book for original Dungeons and Dragons. Those artists were basically high school kids.
Yeah.
My dad had no art budget.
Oh.
So one of them is Keenan Powell. That's my aunt. It's my mom's sister. And she was visiting us, and my dad saw her drawing. And
She
he
was
was like, hey,
visiting.
you're pretty good. You want to draw? So she'd like the hippogriff.
Yeah.
So I had her
Draw me a
sign-
beholder. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Tom Wam might have done the beholder in the Monster Mail. Tom Wam, you may know Tom Wam through Awful Green Things from Outer Space or Dragon Lairds or some of his silly games. But he's been working in the industry, like at Guidon Games and Avalon Hill, I think, both in the 60s, late 60s, when he got out of the Navy, all the way. He was a TSR employee, and yeah, he's been just throughout, gaming history. This our hobby. So, and he's here all the time. He really is like an uncle to me. I see him all the time.
That's neat.
So yeah, so it's just amazing. There's some great books out there. Again, Empire of Imagination, Art and Arcana, fantastic. I would highly recommend those two if you want to get
That was good.
Yeah.
get some ideas.
And then, if you want to, you're reading that history and you're learning all about that, and then coming to the actual place where those things occurred, and is really fascinating. So, if you're not on your way or making plans for GaryCon 12, you should soon.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
You think you're gonna do it again?
Yeah, I think we'll maybe just do one more. Yeah, we'll do just one more.
You don't want to do 13.
12th in a lifetime.
Yeah, but
12th in a lifetime.
yeah, I think,
Same as it ever was.
yeah, I get that. Yeah. But yeah, no, GaryCon is growing. But if you do want to come to GaryCon, and it's not a pitch, we keep growing all the time. We're about as big as we can get. So go to GaryCon.com. Watch the website. If you're on Facebook, we have a GaryCon official page and GaryCon group page, and you get information on next GaryCon and when badges will be up for sale. I don't know that we'll sell out in advance, but we keep growing by, 20% a year or something like that.
Oh, wow.
And we're about at our max capacity right now this year. So if you want to come, make sure you plan ahead, especially for that hotel space.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Sweet
that sort of stuff.
hotel.
But we'd love to have you come. If you haven't been here, you're very welcome. So I'm not trying to discourage anyone.
No, you
we're-
should come.
Yeah,
It is. It's really neat, especially to be able to see that history and meet some of the people who were there at the creation of it. And it's a wonderful location here. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the home. This is the home of the former. Was the home of Gen Con 10. So it has its. There's a history of gaming here in this very building.
Yeah.
So I think it's the appropriate place for GaryCon. And you talk about the history. I'm terrible. I should have mentioned the Legends of Wargaming. We have a whole room, and we lay out like a display of that kind of tells the story of how Dungeons and Dragons came
Oh,
about.
that's cool. I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, it's down in the Maple Lawn room across from Linwood. I can show you where it's at. But
Nice.
yeah, you can play. Oh gosh. You can play old chainmail scenarios. You could play Tractics with like Mike
Oh,
Reese, who wrote it with my dad. You can play Don't Give Up the Ship, an old naval nautical theme.
Oh, nautical
the
theme.
nautical theme.
Perfect. Yes.
Yes, with Mike Carr, who wrote the Don't
yeah,
Give Up
you
the Ship
mentioned that.
rules.
Yeah.
Who wrote with my dad and Dave Arneson and with Mike Carr. So he'll run for. So you can Braunstein, which is the origins of role-playing gaming. The first time you kind of had a single character in a scenario, and each person played a different character with competing goals and stuff. They run that event with Dave Wesley, and he's here every year too. So you can kind of get the roots of our gaming history way back and play with a lot of folks who were there at that time.
That's amazing.
That's really cool. It's a great segue because we're talking to Mike Carr, I believe, in the second interview for us today, this morning, which is really fascinating. I've never, got a chance to pick his brain, so that's going to be tons of fun. And then tomorrow we're talking to Zeb Cook, Penny Williams, and Darlene the artist. So I'm excited to, as a fan of art and Arcana, kind of pick their brains about what it was like creating artwork back in the day. And then on Sunday we've got Margaret Weiss. And Stefan Pokorny, who has been, he was one of the first people I saw when I arrived here at GaryCon.
Stefan loves GaryCon.
He really does.
He's so excited. Yeah.
Yeah, and I can't wait to talk to Margaret again. I think that's going to be really fun. All of you Dragonlance fans out there, send in all your questions.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's a fantastic lineup. Yeah, no, there's tons of great guests here, and all those folks are great. I know and like every single one of those people. So yeah,
excellent. And we're doing the Dragon Coffee Talk version here in the mornings.
yes,
Yeah.
the espresso.
All the coffee.
We need all of the coffee. Now I'm down. I'm totally. I consumed that whole thing, and now
Did
I need
you
another
really?
one. I totally do. Yeah.
Yes, you
More.
must stay caffeinated.
Yes.
Exactly. Very important.
Yes.
Throughout all.
I'm gonna be
it's-
totally wired for our adventure tonight.
Yeah.
Literally gonna go.
It's a very gaming thing, right? You have the Mountain Dew
yeah.
high caffeine
Except
content.
it's now like coffee.
It's
Yeah.
only coffee for me now.
Fresh
Yeah.
pressed
Yes,
coffee.
exactly.
I think we're a little more mature now.
Right.
Drink the coffee. Yeah.
I don't do the 1 part Mountain Dew, 1 part vodka
Oh,
anymore.
no.
That was an old school.
What?
Oh, that doesn't sound good.
It
No
is
wonder
not,
your
but it
parents-
worked.
Yes.
It was effective in its task.
Yeah.
I will eat Doritos though.
I mean, Cool Ranch only, please.
I had a Dorito for the first time in like 30 years a week ago.
Really?
Quinn made me buy him a bag, and I was like, "Give them to me." Like, oh my god, this is amazing.
You rediscovered
Why
Doritos?
have I not been eating these?
It's a transcendent experience. It
It
really
was.
is. Yeah.
It was.
It's one of my daughter's favorites. She will if she sees them, she goes like crazy. She's like, "There's Doritos over there. I can't concentrate on anything else but these Doritos." I'm like, Slow your roll. And she'll
Wow,
have
she
like
can
the
spot
mouth
on.
that's got
Oh,
like
I'm
Doritos
sure,
juice all around it. I'm like, oh
I'm
god,
sure
please just
I
go
had
wash
the
your
mouse
hands.
at Target.
Yeah.
Orange finger, like touching all the Target merchandise. My orange mouth.
You know, and I don't know, the gaming tip out there for people, I've seen a few people do it, but it really always impresses me. If you can use chopsticks, and
Oh my god.
you have Cheetos or Doritos or anything that's got that orange dust on it while you're playing, use the chopsticks to pick up the piece, put it in your mouth. Your hands
It's
don't
so
have
classy,
orange on it, and
too.
you don't end up with orange fingerprints all over
All of
your character
characters.
sheet.
Yeah, no, that's
Chopsticks.
genius.
That's right.
All right.
Yeah. Gaming tip out there. I wanted to spread world around.
We
Everyone
need to
use it.
make D&D branded chops.
Now we do. Oh my gosh, I'm totally gonna do that for swag. That's a great idea.
And partner with Doritos.
Yes,
I need
and for
all
all
the
of-
Doritos.
I mean, everyone eats sushi when they're playing Dungeons and
Of course,
Dragons, right?
yes.
That's like a well-known thing.
Yeah, it's very
At least in the Pacific Northwest.
craft beer and sushi.
That's what we're known for.
Right. Pumpkin ale.
Excellent. Well, it's been great talking to you. I'm very excited about the rest of GaryCon. We've been here for a couple of days, and we've got we're here till Sunday, so this is gonna be fun.
That's amazing. Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Are you gonna get to play anytime?
Yes, I'm going to be
playing
playing. I'm going to
tonight.
be streaming in 2 games tonight and a game tomorrow. And I got to play Metamorphosis Alpha with James M. Ward himself yesterday, which is
Whoa.
fantastic. So yeah, I actually already started my gaming, and I played a little 3rd edition before the con kicked off too.
Oh, wow.
With the staff. So
That's fun.
So yeah, we're covering the D&D.
All the bases. Then you
Yeah, I'm
gotta
gonna play
do-
first
you gotta
edition.
do 4th and 2nd.
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
No, no 2nd or 4th. But I'm getting I'm bracketing. I'm
Yeah.
bracketing and
I
getting in
love
the
it.
middle.
Yeah, right.
What kind of characters do you like to play?
Oh wow! I gravitated towards fighter magic users because Melf was like the character I played as a young man, and did most of my adventuring through the Greyhawk, World of Greyhawk, and Castle Greyhawk with my
Melf
dad.
was your character?
Melf was my character. Yeah,
I
yeah.
feel like I should know that. I didn't know that.
Oh really? Oh yeah.
I think the last time he was on, we talked about that. So
You guys talked to a lot.
maybe you should
Very
listen to
memory.
some Dragon
I
Talk
don't,
episodes.
I don't listen to Dragon Talk.
You should break out your archival records.
It's not even
of
in my
Dragon
top 10
Talk.
favorite podcasts.
Doesn't even crack the top 20.
We need to talk about more reality TV, and then maybe.
Yeah. So yeah, no, Melf was fighter magic user, and I'm gonna play him Saturday in our big epic stream on which we're gonna have on the Twitch channel, D&D Twitch, with Mike Morrells.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
Yeah,
Joe
we'll
Ma-
be
Joe-
hosting that, right? So that's going to be 8 p.m.
8 p.m.
Central
Central.
Time,
Yep,
right? So
Central.
those of you and every other thing, time zones are hard.
Yeah.
Time travel
Time
is very
travel.
difficult.
It is.
But that's 8 p.m. tonight.
look
You
it up.
guys are going to play, right?
Yep,
But
with Chris
yes,
Lindsay. Yep.
yes.
I'm gonna play a rogue, I think, for that one.
I'm
So.
an Aarakocra Ranger.
Oh, okay, very nice.
Yeah.
I think I'm just gonna be either. I'm still tweaking it a little bit. I was gonna be a half orc or a human rogue, because that's also a nautical theme. So
Oh,
I'm gonna be a
makes
pirate
sense.
background. So.
I'm like a seagull.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There you go.
Don't leave your Doritos out, because I'll come for them.
In my game last night, someone used animal friendship on a seagull, and he was like, he tried to give like the 5 steps of instructions to the seagull, and I was like, the seagull says, fly, fly, food,
Seagull says,
food,
mine,
Mine?
Mine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of.
exactly. So that seagulls are a thing in the nautical.
You could go a little more Little Mermaid though, and you could have them giving you bogus.
I know, and then we were
descriptions
trying to
of
remember the
yeah.
name of that
items.
character, and I couldn't
can't
remember.
either,
But
yeah.
I was like, that's
Yeah.
that's
The Little
definitely
Mermaid's name?
No,
the seagull
Ariel.
Oh.
I got that. But what was the seagull's name? Was like something funny.
Oh, yeah.
Seemed I don't know. I bet there's people who's
Yeah,
watching.
they're
me
probably
like, it's blah blah
they're
blah.
shouting
yeah.
at you. Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we couldn't remember last night either.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're playing at 8 o'clock tonight,
I am.
8 o'clock on Saturday.
Yes.
Watch the D&D Twitch channel
Yep.
for that.
Scuttle.
Scuttle.
Thank you.
I wouldn't
Yeah.
have gotten that.
No. I was like,
Yeah, I
totally
wasn't even
not.
close.
Yeah. I was like, Bob? No, Ralph? No, none of those things.
Horatio, yeah. Horatio the seagull. Yeah. No.
Now I want to change my character's name.
To Horatio.
Horatio the
Horatio
seagull.
the Seagull, even though
That's
he's
that's
not.
good. That's a great name.
He's in disguise.
But you already gave you a little bit of your pitch about GaryCon, but like
yeah.
people can, where's the URL for that, and then how can people find you on social media if you want to let people know or not?
Absolutely. You can go to GaryCon.com to
Wow.
find all your information on
Write that
GaryCon.
down.
And then for, obviously, we have Gary.con for our Instagram, and Twitter is GaryCon as well. And me personally, it's pretty simple, Luke Gygax, LukeGygax, and you can find all of my social media.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and you'll get to see lots of pictures of my daughters if you follow my personal stuff. So
That's what I always
Yeah.
underline too. It's like, yeah, there's some gaming things on there, but it's mostly cute kids.
yeah, mostly me with bedhead and girls on my lap when I
Yeah.
get home.
Love it.
So that's great. Yeah.
Nice.
Passing on the legacy.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then the final thing, I just want to say the Melf kind of thing. I had a couple of new players, people who haven't played for a long time. They've played some older editions, and I was testing out the adventure that I was going to play here at GaryCon with them, and one of them had not looked at their spell list, and he's like, "Oh, I'm just going to cast this spell. I've never cast it before. Melf's Acid Arrow."
Mel's Acid Arrow.
And he cast it, and then I was talking to you on text, and I was like, "Oh, funnily enough, I was just texting with Melf."
yeah.
And he's like, "What? You were?" He's like, "Yeah, the guy, Luke Gygax, that was his character when he played with his father back in the day." And there was impressive smiles all around. So thank you
that's
for
awesome.
giving me
Oh,
that one moment
great.
of making me feel cool in
I'm
front
glad
of
I
other
could help.
dads.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
I'm just gonna use that, even if I'm not.
Yeah, just be
texting
like,
you.
"Oh, yeah."
I was just texting.
I was just texting with
Hold
Mel.
on. I'll get right back to you. I think back in our old building at Wizards, we had a conference room that was named after Melf. too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
got to get you back in the conference
Yeah.
room gig.
I know.
I know.
That's, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks a lot, Luke. I love talking to you, and this convention is amazing, and I can't wait to spend the rest of the days here and come
Yeah.
back next year.
Thank you
Yeah,
so much.
fantastic. No, but we're gonna have a great time. It's off to a great start.
Already are.
Yep.
Done
All right, thanks,
and
guys.
done. Awesome.
Done and done.
All right, well, thank you everyone for watching. We're going to take a little bit of a short break, get some more coffee, and
coffee.
perhaps use the facilities due to that coffee.
Hey,
and
TMI, man.
we'll be back. It's a family
We don't do
affair.
that.
Yeah, right, exactly. And yeah, then we'll be back and be interviewing Mike Carr. So stick around.
The only man who's been to every Gen Con and every GaryCon.
That's
Whoa.
amazing. It's still to this day every Gen Con. Wow. All right. Well, we'll definitely talk about all that. Thanks, you guys. We'll be back in a second.
Bye.
Bye-bye.